Good morning, everybody. I am angel sent by Father Mariol Raja. I like the topic very much. Socio-pastoral formation of the priests and religious in Indian context by Dr. Mariol Raja. This morning session, we were listening to the Z generation. There are a lot of implications, and also the next one is alpha generation alpha. There are so many complications are there, so many potentials are there, but whatever be the generation, the issues are the same to be faced with. So I am coming from a rural background. My community is in a rural area near Viluppuram. I stay with my neighbors who are all primitive tribal people, transgenders, and the gypsies. And we live with those people, live with just one meal a day. And they don't have proper housing. They don't have an Aadhaar card. Many of them don't have Aadhaar card and no ration card. So therefore, all their earnings go for only for the meal, just for the meal. And no drinking water facilities. There's no toilet facilities, no education, no health care. People are living in our own country where we are speaking about Z generation, alpha generation, ultra-modern system and structural thing. There's lot of structural exploitation, discrimination. You look at the picture, they are the people, these are the houses. Where are they living? There's no house. There's no location for them. It's just on the street. This is more than 100 years they are living there. India lives in villages. This is very important. Gandhi said, India lives in villages. The latest information is 66.13% they are living in the villages. Most of us are coming from villages. Rural people, rural priests, rural sisters, religious, but all aspiring for cities. Okay. World average is 38 only. World average rural people are 38, but India 66. 84% of the Indians live with less than $6 per day. 1/3 of the Indians do not have a full meal a day, most of these people. 2 people are eating, third person is hungry. 2 people are eating, third person is hungry. It's when Vajpayee was Prime Minister, he was saying 34.7% people are below poverty line. Today we are changing the below poverty line strata itself, but that's not the fact. So therefore, majority of the Christians are coming from the socio-economic poor strata. For them, we are making this formation. For them, we are all formatted. This is very important to note. For whom are we forming? Indian Christians, majority, 70% are poor people. Where is our voice? The Bible is a cry of the poor, cry for justice, cry for rights. Are we preparing for this? And the whole thing, this is only about me, myself, I'm speaking, but the whole thing what Father Raja is giving is a response to that kind of formation, a response to the burning issues. Is our formation connected to this reality? Under the principle of demand and supply, are we preparing the supply for our future generation with the needed conviction to address this reality? So the talisman, yesterday for Felix Wilfred was speaking about the talisman of Gandhi. So I repeat it once again. I will give you a talisman. Whenever you are in doubt or when the self becomes too much with you, apply this following test. Recall the face of the poorest and the weakest man or woman whom you may have seen and ask for yourself if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him or to her. Will she or he gain anything by it? Will it restore him or her to a control over him or his own life and destiny? In other words, will it lead to Swaraj? Swaraj means self-rule, okay, freedom, for the hungry and spiritually starving millions. Then you will find your doubts and yourself melt away. This is one of the last quotes of Gandhi, written 1948. In January he dies. So now I am coming to Father Dr. Raja's point. So he speaks in 4 areas: formation of the global church, formation of the Indian Catholic Church, Indian Church, formation for subaltern empowerment, and pedagogy. Okay. So the contents are like this. There are 4 types of 3 stages he says. First, initial stage, intermediate stage, advanced stage. You know, initial, the pre-seminary or minor seminary, or stage of spiritual initiation, pre-novitiate, aspirancy, postulancy, novitiate, juniorate, and undergraduate studies. These are all come under initial stage. Then the intermediary is like what we are having here: regency, philosophy, philosophical studies, postgraduate studies, and skilled skills-oriented training. And the third one is the advanced stage. That is our theological studies, tertianship, for sisters juniorate, and advanced postgraduate studies and ongoing formation. So we'll come to the outcome. First, I'll start with the formation of the global church. The overall changes in the world and need for changes in our priestly and religious formation. So this is personal, spiritual, academic, communitarian, apostolic integration as the objective of formation. Most of our formations are only one side. It can bulge anywhere and die away. That's intellectual formation. We study and vomit out, you become priest, you become religious, you go for higher studies, you vomit again and again. So that is, I think, only one side growth is given. That's very pathetic. Priests as missionary disciples and the religious, credible prophets with the obligatory agape in solidarity with the anavim. With the smell of the sheep, we are to generate civilization of agape, egalitarian outlook, and ethos of communion towards faith-inspired justice, love-triggered peace, and hope-generating joy. The subaltern empowerment in the formation of the clergy and religious in the Indian church, the second aspect. Drawing inspiration from the Indian church, especially the CBCI, Dalit empowerment in the Catholic Church in India, an ethical imperative to build inclusive communities. Already the word is very, very solid in the synodal approach. So, it's insisting on the personal and structural conversion to the Lord and to the marginalized. It's very important. One of the names for God is Daridra Narayana. God is peace, God is harmony, all these things. But one of these, God is Daridra Narayana. God is poor. It's only that God is poor, but the other side is very important. The poor is God. The poor is God. I think yesterday in the initial message, they were giving very clearly about it. So the Anavim, Yahweh is the poor. Poor is God. God is poor, but the poor is God is more important. Learning and incorporating the rich Dalit heritage and countercultural values, music, dance, folklore, stories, literature, proverbs, myths, legends, aesthetic expressions in liturgical, paraliturgical services. There are so many issues are available already. Celebration of human dignity, participation of women and men, children in all aspects of every structure, and governance of the church. These are the things for the general church. Catechism oriented towards the kerygma and human rights. Very often catechism is connected to rubrical, liturgical, memorizing, prayer, blah, blah, blah. With that it stops. What is the meaning of that? Where do we go for it? How it is connected to the sufferings, cry of the poor? All these things are very important, kerygma. Caste-breaking culture in all our discourses within and outside the classrooms, pulpits, and life situations needed. Building self-esteem for the broken images of the priest and the religious from womb to tomb. Then the formation for subaltern empowerment. Going forth with missionary outreach for the frontiers and peripheries, with the spirit of genuine dialogue with all the peoples of goodwill. Evolving critical consciousness in the light of the divine revelation. These are important for subaltern perspective. Identification of the constructive paradigms and elements in all cultures drawn from down-to-earth immersion and involvement in the fields, proposing theological foundations and guiding principles with various types of disciplinary, pedagogical, and didactical articulations. Interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary approaches with the spirit of creative wisdom, celebrating the unity in diversity in approaches and methods, due respect and respect for the multitude, correlated and converging expressions. Going beyond mere academic pursuits or communicating the knowledge of next generation. This is very important, next generation language. Pedagogy. Amidst the form is, we need to cultivate contemplative intelligence, compassionate understanding, covenantal commitment. This formation for mission is governed by the pedagogy of formation in mission with close accompaniment of the formators. In all stages of formation, the following spiraling phases are needed. First is impact, secondly inquiry, third one is inspiration, fourth one is involvement. Phase of impact, that is direct immersion, exposure with the spirit of incarnation. There used to be some 40 years when we were studying, we were so told to go and stay with the poor people 3 or 4 times in the diaconate, 4 times, each one 1 week or 10 days. I don't know whether it is there in many places. Impact, if it is not there, you will not be speaking the language of people. Phase of inquiry, critical queries with the help of human sciences and mindset of nation. Phase of inspiration, faith-inspired alternatives drawn from the Word of God. The right interpretation with the subaltern perspective, because they are the majority of the people. We are coming from them. The phase of involvement, love-triggered actions for creating hope-generating dreams. Subaltern people's mythos, ethos, and logos. This is very important. Questions of life and death from below, further sharpened with human sciences. Dialoguing with religious cultural resources, sacred stories, narratives, traditions, and revelation. Drawing energies for ongoing involvement. It's not a formation, but involvement. What are contents? Contents of subaltern victimhood, subjecthood, and communityhood. They are to be focused with comprehensive familiarity, empathetic outlook, and scientific analysis. They are to be introduced in tune with the perspective ability and the respective stage of formation. Formies are expected to grow in effective ownership of the subaltern as our mission people. The formator formies, they should feel that this is our mission people. Who are the people? They are the people. The poorest, marginalized, periphery, they are the people, our people. They are the first target. The first, last become the first. Let us look into the 3 ages. What all things can be done? Initial stage, intermediate, advanced stage. In every stage, field experience, both intense immersion, 2 to 3 weeks, and sustained involvement, like weekends, for the entire academic year in the locations or parishes in the presence of Dalit or tribal or migrants where the most marginalized people live, the slum areas or rural areas. The initial stage, I know the stages you know. The stories, what are things can be done during the initial stage? Stories and data of victimization, assertion, community building, contribution to the subalterns of the contribution of the subaltern in history in the Indian regions, church and religious institutes, they should be knowing. Comparing and contrasting the perceptions of both the dominant and the dominated people on the functioning of the system of economy, society, polity, governance, and religion. Introductory inputs on the legitimization of the systems of oppression. There's a lot of legitimization there. Our formies knowing, are they aware of this? Manudharma, Purusha Sukta, or other texts, or the subaltern dissent against the same, like Sramanic tradition, Mahatma Phule, Karl Marx, Ambedkar, Periyar, or the Narayana Guru. There are so many people in every region. Introductory observations and reflections on subaltern religious traditions and popular devotional practices are needed. Some projects could be assigned with all this X generation, Y generation, Z generation, or Alpha generation. They should be assigned projects in identifying the nomenclature of the caste system, oppressive system, built in the sexist language, open and subtle forms of daily oppressive practices, subaltern movements, collection of biographies of subaltern women and men. Today's papers are plenty of this. What is happening against Dalit and tribal, so many news, but there's no work is given. Introduction to the origins of the church and religious institutes, interpreting the charism from the perspective of subaltern empowerment. The biblical teaching on and the attitude towards the poor, the orphans, widows, strangers, and Gentiles are to be emphasized from both the first and the second statement. The whole Bible is the cry of the poor, the response to the cry of the poor, rights of the marginalized. These are the main things. If this is not given to the people, we will be waiting with dry philosophical or theological thinking only. Intermediate system, what all things can be done? Introducing various oral written subaltern resources generated both the subalterns and others with critical consciousness from the subaltern socio-cultural location. The theories of the origin, dynamics, destiny of the structures of casteism, patriarchy, economic exploitation, feudalism, capitalism, colonialism, corruption, communalism, fundamentalism, on etc. in Indian history. Also, the women gender inequality is very important. Ideological critique of the nomenclature imposed on Dalit, tribals, caste titles, concepts of purity, pollution, sacred and secular, holy and unholy form of Brahminic, Pharisaic, and colonial rulers, as well as the subaltern practices and ideologies. Multiple factors constructing healthy and unhealthy identities. These are things can be given all the seminary formation. Dynamics of wounded psyche, the battered consciousness of the untouchables, backward caste, most backward caste, tribals, women, daily workers, migrants, coolies, whether in our institute or outside. Introducing tools of analysis for assessing the magnitude of economic impoverishment, political disempowerment, social ostracism, religio-cultural oppression imposed on the subaltern. All this, if you are really sensible, then the whole prayer will change. The mass, everything will be changed. The introduction, prayer of faith, everything will change its perspective. Critical interpretation of the text like Bible, the Quran, Manusmriti, Bhagavad Gita, Dhammapada, Sarvaka traditions, Kabir Das, writings of Ayodhya Das Pandidar, Rattamali Srinivasan, Mahatma Gandhi, Mahatma Phule, Ambedkar, E.V. Ramaswamy Periyar, Swami Vivekananda, or Ayya Vali Vaikunta Swami, or Sri Narayana Guru. There are so many, everybody. These are very important to know the critical interpretation of the people's language, people's response, people's theological, spiritual response through these people. Contemporary text of literary movements from the locations of Dalit, tribal, subaltern women and across the various states. Some projects of collecting biographies of subaltern women and men leaders, collecting myths and legends from Dalit, tribals, migrants, women, all this can be given to us. Because with the BARD or alternate, artificial intelligence, people can collect very enthusiastically. Instead of banning from the mobile from the seminary and formation centers, give them work. Let them come to know all these things. The inputs on Dalit, tribals, migrants, and women as victims, subjects, and community builders in the secular history and church history with the national emphasis. Subaltern critique of the doctrines of Dharma, Karma, Swadharma, Avidya, Mukti, original sin, avarice, grace, damnation, moksha, naraga, through the reading of appropriate text. How the subaltern will critique, what should be our role, how we should be critic of this for our people. Critical appraisals of the Bhakti traditions, both in subaltern empowerment and disempowerment. The subaltern foundations of interrelation anthropology, egalitarian ethic, futuristic studies, and casteless society are to be identified through critical analysis of various ancient and contemporary authors. The philosophy operative behind the discourses of Indian Constitution, human rights, UN Charter on Human Rights, or civil liberty movements, black movements, feminist movements, ecological movement, tribal movement, Dalit movements, all these things have to be known. They must be known by the formists. If they are not known, they will not take a side with the poor. They will not take with the charism of the Congress. All the charism of the Congress are connected to the cry of the poor. Social teaching of the church, Buddhist ethics, subaltern exploration into the egalitarian ethics for annihilation of the systematic evils like caste system, patriarchy, systems of socio-cultural, political, economic, and religio-ideological exploitation. The advanced stage, what they should do. The subaltern Christian history in India are in-depth analysis of religious conversion of the Dalit and tribal and other religions, to other religions. Critical appraisal of their conflicting subaltern consciousness amid the struggles and the dominant people and multiple approaches to subaltern empowerment by various subaltern, non-subaltern, anti-subaltern leaders and ideologies both at the regional and national levels. In-depth engagement with the suffering in the light of discourses on bondage caused by avidya, mukti, moksha, trishna, sunyada, karma, papa, punya, mamala, or humanitarian, dehumanitarian, and the various religious texts, all to be known by our people. Indian religious Christians, for me, should know all this background. Only then we'll know the pain of the people, why it is happening, what the structural injustice, structural anti-human rights are happening. Prophetic interventions and mystical interventions into human-made sufferings and other sufferings from various texts and biblical prophets, Tamil Siddhas, Kabir Das, Book of Job, Passion narratives, story of Harichandra for understanding of human-made suffering and salvific suffering, the vicarious suffering, all this, the suffering servant of Yahweh. All these are connected to almost every every religious tradition. The subaltern hermeneutical principles operative in interpreting classical religious texts as well as oral traditional texts, stories, legends, biographies of the subaltern women and men leaders. The intertextual reading of the egalitarianism in the Bible and Indian Constitution, jurisprudence of the Bible, Manusmriti, and Dharmasastra, and ethic of the Bible and Dhammapada. Critical appraisal of the operative worldviews behind the traditional and daily practice of egalitarianism, jurisprudence, ethics in the life and worship of Dalit and tribal people, so people in the periphery. Understanding of documents of the Catholic Bishops' Conference, CBCA, National Council of Churches in India, the NCCA, and also CRA, Conference of Religious in India, Catholic Religious Forum for Peace and Justice, CRFPJ, and World Conference of Churches, WCC, regarding the subaltern empowerment, including all these issues. They can be read from all this literature. The social teaching of the church on human dignity, peace, justice, common good, egalitarianism, human rights, pluralism, and freedom. These are very important to learn what's really happening. Comparative studies in Dalit theologies, liberation theologies, subaltern feminist theology, black theology, Minjung theologies, Brahmin theologies, and various indigenous theologies from across the globe are to be known. Subaltern religiosity, spiritualities, God talk expressed through spontaneous popular devotional practices, worships, and rituals in dialogue with the classical religiosities, spiritualities, God talk expressed through Christology, Mariology, ecclesiology, sacraments. Then the components of subaltern aesthetics, celebrations, ritual, liturgies, they all will become much more meaningful. Where we go for slum areas, rural areas, which should be the more than 60 or 70% of our ministry should be focused on them, whether it's spirituality or learning, education, health ministry, whatever be, it is meant for the periphery. Subaltern spiritual world and mystical search encountering day-to-day struggles, conflicts, and uncertainties engendering new energies, aspirations, and hopes. Subaltern utopia, like utopia, so casteless society, classless society, patriarchy-less society, and subaltern trans-historical eschatological visions of life and resurrection. I'm going to end it. So, desired outcome. The culture of critical rereading of religio-cultural resources of the church traditions and the charisms and the traditions of religious institutes from the perspective of subaltern empowerment. In fact, you don't need this. This is the core of religious congregation. Wherever you read, subaltern perspective. Any congregation, why it started, is always response to the cry of the poor. There's women, old age, old people, young people, sick people, everyone is connected to them. Understanding the conflict's history of violence, denial of rational anthropology, asymmetry of power, and growing subaltern critical historical consciousness. Integration of universality and particularity, contemplation, mission, reason and revelation, life and liturgy, theology and pastoral care, tradition and dialogue should be integrated. Challenging pedagogies could be evolved with the help of artificial intelligence, producing student-friendly textbooks and appealing manuals. Creative projects with the multimedia facilities, just we saw about multimedia facilities, they have to be made use of. So the creative project with multimedia facilities with aesthetic expressions are expected with constant accompaniment by the formators with genuine ownership of subaltern as our own people, our own mission people, our priority people, our preferred people. Interior movements like emic, that means the realization, emic point of view of the subaltern people, what we realize, what we know about these people, that's emic point of view, or to be grappled with rather than the superficial ethic point of view. The ethic point of view, what we hear, oh, these people are poor, they are lazy, they don't know how to work, they cannot understand. All these things are bombarding on our mind and we are led by that kind of negativity. So, the outsider's perspective. One's own holiness here on earth and our collective salvation eternity as priests and religious are possible only when the broken people and the broken nature in history are redeemed from unjust suffering here and now. Thank you very much. Thanks for Dr. Raja. Thank you.